All right. Welcome back to the class. Today class topic is strategic management and organizational behavior. So, which is part of the human resource management. And also this part much more focus on about organizational things and the human resource management era as well. Um. All right. So to understand the gravity of our topic, so we must first engage in a longitudinal analysis of the historical evolution of management thought. Uh, so in the early 20th century, okay, so before going to deep dive into this topic, so we needed to see and also understand the overview of this session as well. Especially, you guys must understand the core objective of this session. So this session's core objective is to deconstruct the human engine of strategic execution as well. So we will analyze how organizational culture acts as the medium of strategy, how top 10 management's cognitive architecture defines a firm trajectory, and how to synchronize individual motivation with macro corporate goals as well. So you guys will learn the micro eras, which means that individual motivation, and also you guys will learn macro corporate goals, which is huge relations about the strategy management as well. Okay, so we are moving on to the module one. So historical evolution, things like that. So in the early 20th century, so management was dominated by Frederick Taylor's scientific management as well. So this scientific management is a paradigm that essentially viewed the worker as a mere physical extension of the industrial motion. So during this era, strategy as a formal academic discipline so did not yet exist in the robust way we understand it today. So it was largely synonymous with top-down long-range planning and strict budgetary control as well. So, however, the following the systemic shift of World War II, the field of strategic management began to diverge into distinct intellectual paths. So one path is that heavily influenced by industrial organization economists, so led by scholars such as Mason and Bain. And later refined into global standards by Mike Portas at Harvard, so focused on the structure, conduct, performance, which is SCP paradigms as well. So this deterministic view argued that a firm's success is determined primarily by the external environment. So the industry structure, the intensity of rivalry, the power of suppliers, and the height of entry barriers. So in this economic centric view, so the internal life of the organization, the messy, subjective thoughts, feelings, and behaviors of its people, so were treated as a black box. So the underlying assumption was that if the external position was mathematically correct, so the internal execution would naturally follow through the rational, the mechanical management as well. So parallel to this development, the field of organizational behavior was evolving from the Hawthorne studies of the 1920s and 30s as well, which is called 호손 실험 in Korean. So which famously discovered that social factors, informal groups, and employee morale had a significantly higher impact on productivity than physical lightening or rest periods. Yet for decades, organized behavior (OB) was patronizingly seen as the soft side of business, so focused on job satisfaction and the group dynamics, while strategy was the hard side, so focused on the market share and the competitive rivalry. We move on to the second one. So the Great Convergence, or what we might call the humanistic turn in strategy, that began in the late 1980s and culminated in Jay Barnes, my favorite scholars, and his seminar is a work on a resource-based view (RBV). The Barnes' core argument was a direct empirical challenge to the external eccentric view of Porter. So he posited that the competitive advantage does not come from industry positioning evolve alone. So because any profitable position that relies on external factors can eventually be imitated by a well-funded competitor. So instead, sustainable advantage stems from internal resources that are valuable, rare, inevitable, and non-substitutable, which is called brain as well. As many students already know that, right? I hope all you guys know this concept and this frame as well. Um, so so as we analyze the brain VRIN framework with academic rigor, so we realize that physical assets, financial capital, and even basic technology are rarely imitable in a globalized economy. So they can be bought, borrowed, or reverse engineered. So what is truly imitable are socially complex resources. So these include a firm's long-term reputation, its internal trust networks, its unique organizational culture, and the tax knowledge embedded in the collective experience of each people. So this realization fundamentally shifted the ontological status of organization behavior. So it was no longer just about making people happy for the sake of retention, but about building the core, inimitable engine of global strategy. Okay, so therefore, so our lecture is structured to deconstruct this human engine. So we will first examine organizational culture as a strategic gravity that dictates implementation. Secondly, we will analyze strategic leadership through the upper eco series, which is called UET. So looking at how the cognitive architecture of the CEO and top management team, as known as TMT, defines the firm's. trajectory. So finally, we will explore the micro foundation of alignment and focusing on how to synchronize individual motivation with macro corporate goals as well. So I hope this is not just a lecture, so it is a deep dive into the human reality of strategic success in a volatile world as well. Okay, so we move on to the next thing, next topic. So, I write that some interesting sentence right there, right? So why cultures is strategy for breakfast? You guys must taste this sentence before going to study this topic. So must think about it. Just press the pause button and think about this sentence. So why that guy write that sentence? Okay, so actually this sentence, this quote is not mine, and this quote is from the Peter Drucker's famous quote. Um, so his famous quote, "Culture is strategy for breakfast," is not merely a clever metaphor for consultants. It is a clinical, scholarly observation of why even the most brilliant strategic plans frequently fail during the implementation phase. So, to understand this, we must utilize the comprehensive work of Edgar Schein, so the firm's the authority on organizational structure, culture as well. So, if someone have interest in uh, organizational strategy and also some macro organizational situation, so must remember this name, Shine, Edgar Shine. So this scholar is the famous and also brilliant scholars in this era. So if someone have interest, so just remember this name. Actually, Shine defines culture as a pattern of a shared basic assumption that a group has learned as it solved its problems of external adaptation and internal integration. So he emphasizes that culture is not a static thing that an organization possesses, but a dynamic process that an organization is. So he provides us with a sophisticated three-level model to decipher this complexity. Artifacts, expose the values and the basic underlying assumption as well. So first, artifacts. So artifacts are the surface level, um, uh, so visible manifestation as well. So they include the physical layout of the office, the specific language and jargon used in internal memos, the technology platforms adopted, and the observables ritual like town hall meetings or Friday afternoon social hours like that. So while visible, the artifacts are often profoundly misleading to the untrained eyes. For example, a company like Enron had artifacts that signaled excellence and integrity on their lobby walls. But as we know from history, these were completely decoupled from the deeper levels of their cultures. Artifacts tell you what an organization looks like, but not why it artifacts as well. So I'm gonna write this one. So artifacts tells what an organization looks like, but not why it acts like that. Okay, so and the second level is the exposed values. These are the conscious strategy and the goals and the philosophies that the organization publicly promoted to its stakeholders. So you see these in annual reports and recruitment brochure and corporate websites. So we value innovation. We are customer centric. We believe in radical transparency like that. However, the values at this level often represent what the organization aspires to be or what it wants the market to believe it is. So the strategic implementation gap occurs precisely here. So when the value states in the boardroom uh, do not match the day-to-day behaviors on the office floor, this gap creates um, cynicism and strategic drift as well. So, so, so the explosive values in a strategy management, the important thing in a strategy management, so you guys must memorize for that the implementation gap. Okay, is really important point for that. And third thing is that most powerful level consists of basic underlying assumption. These are the unconscious taken for granted beliefs that actually drive human behavior within the firm. So they are the DNA of the organization. So if an organization has a deep underlying assumption that conflict is dangerous and should be avoided at all costs to maintain harmony, then a new corporate strategy based on radical candor or intellectual friction will fail immediately. So the employees will instinctively suppress their disagreements to maintain the perceived safety of their culture room, even if they know the strategy is failing. So this is the precise mechanism by which culture is strategy. So the culture acts as an organizational immune system, so identifying any new strategy that contradicts its underlying assumptions as a foreign virus and working subconsciously to neutralize it. Okay, so to understand the mechanical flows of these cultural impacts, so we must look at Napier and Gauchos theories of social capital. So they argue that for any strategy to be executed, and knowledge and resources must move through the firm. So this movement is governed by three dimensions of social capital. Structural capital refers to the former and informal network of who knows whom. And cognitive capital, second one, refers to the formal and informal network of I'm sorry, cognitive capital refers to a shared language as well. So whether the engineers and the marketing team even understand each other's objectives and terminologies, but the most vital is relational capital. So which is built on trust, obligations, and mutual expectations. So in a toxic, high pressure, or highly political culture, the relational capital is systematically destroyed. So when trust is absent, employees hide information, guard their functional silos, and engage in defensive reasoning to avoid blame. So in such an environment, a strategy of agile collaboration or cross-functional synergy is technically and socially impossible. The strategic plan may be mathematically perfect in a spreadsheet, but the social capital requires to move that plan into action does not exist in the human reality of the firm. Uh, okay, so I'm gonna show one thing of the case. So consider the case of the estimate Kodak. So for nearly a century, Kodak's strategy was built on the chemical razor blade model. So they selling cameras at a low margin and high quality film at a massive margin as well. So they sell what? Sell the camera at a low margin and they sell the high quality film at a massive margin as well. So their internal culture was perfectly optimized for chemical engineering, the precision manufacturing, and the physical distribution. So when the digital revolution arrived, Kodak's own R&D department actually invented the first digital camera in 1975 as well. So interesting, right? So they invented the first digital camera. But however, the basic underlying assumption of the culture was we are a chemical film company. So they are focused on the we are a chemical film company. So this assumption was so deep-seated that this strategy was seen as a direct threat to their institutional identity as well. So middle managers who were rewarded the best of the film sales suppressed the digital transition for decades. Kodak did not fail because they lacked a digital strategy. So they failed because their chemical-centric culture ate their digital future before it could ever scale. Right? They have failed. But in contrast, conversely, Fujifilm faced the exact same existential threats, Fujifilm's leadership recognized that their core concept hence was not a film. But the chemical processing of thin film surface. So they strategically pivoted their culture to apply the competence to high and cosmetics and pharmaceuticals. So they manage their cultural assumptions to fit a new strategic reality as well. So this is the difference between a firm that is a victim of its culture and a firm that leads through its culture as well. Mm, okay. Also, mm, so we must also analyze the cultural strategic fit in the context of mergers and acquisition. When the Benz merged with a Chrysler, um, the strategy relational was perfect. The global scale, complementary product lines, and shared R&D like that. However, the merger was a spectacular failure. Why? So because the conservative hierarchy and engineering-driven culture of clashed violently. So with the egalitarian, fast-moving, and the marketing-driven culture of Chrysler. So the strategic what was there, but the cultural how was broken. So this is really important like that. So the strategic what was there, but the cultural how was broken. So the two cultures never integrated. Instead, they engaged in a silent civil war that destroyed billions in shareholders' values. So this is primarily as an academic example of why cultural due diligence is as important as financial due diligence is strategic decision making as well. So in summary of this module, this part, mm, strategic managers must stop viewing culture as a human resources issue or a soft variable. So culture is the very medium through which strategy is expressed. So you cannot change a strategy without first auditing and potentially reshaping the underlying assumptions of the people who must execute it. So if you ignore the culture will ignore your strategy. Then your competitive advantage will vanish. So that's why you must understand and then study for the organizational culture, organizational behavior, and human resource like that during the strategy management class as well. Okay, so we take the break first, then we move to the strategy leadership and top management cognition as well. Okay, let's take a break.